vinyl and vision.
Hey guys, thank you for tuning in to the latest episode of Vinyl and Vision. This is episode 22 with my very special guest, Peter Prescott, formerly of Mission of Burma, currently the band Minibeast. Currently listening to a song called Handed off of the Silver record, Ism Volume Silver. This is actually one of a double volume set. Their most recent release is called Ism. There's Volume Silver and Volume Gold. And you can see that it's probably named because of the cool vinyl that it comes pressed as. So I encourage everyone to pick up a copy of these. Got these from Peter at their live performance the other night. $20 for both. Absolutely completely affordable and well worth it. There'll also be a small clip of the song Your Exact Location, also off of this Silver album, at the end of this episode, so please stay tuned for that. So just wanted to say thank you to everybody for tuning in and listening. We're looking forward to having hopefully a really great year. I actually have to give a thank you and say a job well done to my podcast support and overall tech guru Cory Cascella, who helped me with this episode and will be hopefully helping me with every episode foreseeable future. So a lot of discussion going on in this talk. I just have to say thank you to Peter for his time, and I think we had an excellent conversation overall. I feel like I maybe have flubbed a couple things because, hey, that's just what I do. But I have to say thank you to Peter for maybe picking up the extra weight there and just making this a really interesting conversation. He really shared some really incredible things that I was not actually expecting to kind of get into. So please support Minibeast. Go check them out. You can find them at minibeast.net and link with them on Facebook and Instagram, Bandcamp, Spotify, and all the other streaming platforms. Just to give it a search. So thank you so much. Please do all the things you do with the internet. Give us a like, a share, a subscribe, comment, and review. Reviewing seems to be the new thing that helps podcasts out. So if you don't mind, send us a positive review. Send a negative if you want to. That's fine. Just reviewing it helps us out, helps out the podcast kind of get more exposure and kind of work its way up the list. So that's all for now. Thank you and enjoy this talk. So now this is a very airy record.
A very what?
Very airy record.
Yeah.
Like there's going to be a
lot to start off with that.
Yeah.
It's hilarious to me.
And it goes on for a while. I mean, like, I can see the groove of that first track and how it's the majority of the first side. So it's 46 minutes long approximately, the entire record.
That sounds right.
And this song must be 10 minutes.
Something like that.
Huh. So now, aside from the look of it, because you were saying how the first time you saw this record was in a record store and just the colors.
In Maine, yeah.
In Maine.
Yeah, Burma was playing up there.
Oh,
and we'd always go to record stores and I purely, I didn't know what it was. So, occasionally I would buy stuff because it looked cool.
Yeah. But that's cool. So, and what year was that, do you think?
80.
80?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Something like that.
So 80. So this came out in 72. So that's not too long after it came out. Did you ever get an opportunity to see Noi? I feel like I'm saying that wrong. Noi?
No, you are.
Is that
that's the correct pronunciation as far as I know.
Okay.
Noi.
Yeah.
Weirdly enough, I did.
You did?
Yeah, which is insane that I did. Burma played sort of after we reformed. We did several European tours, and usually they were connected, like they always need to be to some kind of a festival, so you get some fat paycheck for the festival that financed the rest of the tour.
Right.
This time, I think we might have played in All Tomorrow's Parties, which was a festival in England that we did several times. But this was at Primavera,
Okay.
which is in Barcelona, Spain. And it's maybe 3 or 4 nights, and it wasn't on our night, but a version of Noi. Apparently, I don't know the full story, but my understanding was it was 2 guys,
Right.
basically, and the drummer has that insanely identifiable, almost like robotic drumming style.
Right.
Really spare, no rolls, no, hardly hitting any cymbals, you know.
Yeah.
And apparently the guitar player and the drummer, after they put out these records, despised each other. Now, I don't know that that's true. That's my understanding.
There was some disharmony between them, for sure.
Apparently.
Yeah, like they've even had arguments, I guess, as far as like repressing things in the future and
I think
releasing
so.
their 4th posthumous record, I guess.
Yeah, the drummer has since died.
Well, he died in 2008, but even before his passing away, that they had a 4th record that they never got to release, basically because I don't think that they could reach any agreement.
Agree on it. Yeah.
So.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's obviously there's some serious like bad blood between them.
I know, such a shame, because they're such a unique sound, and it was,
Right.
I think that when there's bass or other sounds on these records, I think the guitar player played it. I'm not sure, but I think so. Like I said, it wasn't on the night that we played, so I didn't have to think about anything. I was pretty excited about seeing any version of it.
Yeah.
And so, it's Barcelona, the sun is going down, there's an enormous stage, like acres of people, and the sky's kind of purple. I think they might have started out with that song.
Really?
And Shelley knew how to play that really simple, unadorned beat.
Mm-hmm.
The bass player played simple, and the guitarist was the guy.
Yeah.
So it sounded exactly like it.
Wow.
And one of the best things I've ever stumbled into at a festival ever.
I bet. Yeah.
I think when we got the show on the other night, I'm not sure if I even knew that there was going to be anything like that.
Yeah.
So when I heard it, I was like, Noi? So yeah.
Wow.
It was great.
That's great.
Yeah.
Did you often, like, being on tour, especially with Mission of Burma, like, get the opportunity to see bands that you have always wanted to see, or?
Yeah, it came up a few times.
Yeah.
I think the first time we went over, Wire was on the bill. It was a shellac curated show, so lots of Chicago bands. But on the night we played, I think it was us, Wire, and Cheap Trick.
Cheap Trick?
Yeah, because Albini loves Cheap Trick.
Oh, okay.
He just loves Cheap Trick.
Wow.
And it was kind of funny because, there's lots of older musicians there, but I don't think anybody as straight as Cheap Trick.
Yeah, I bet.
So it was kind of strange when they, I think they might have ended the whole festival. It might have been the last day.
They seem like they would be a closer, for sure.
Yeah. And I dug them. They're a cool band, but they felt a little bit out of the rest of the groups.
Yeah. Well, that's the problem with being, I guess,
classic rock.
Being a classic rock band, but being admired by a guy that's very well known for being noise rock.
Exactly.
It's just like, he might love them, and I'm sure there are other people that are fans of the noise rock scene that will also appreciate them, but not necessarily a lot of them.
No, especially because, there was a lot of kids at this festival, and, to them they were probably. I mean, Burma was old to them, so
Yeah.
Cheap Trick probably seemed like from the 50s or something.
Right. Yeah. But at least they can get on board with Burma sound.
Right.
Even
Right.
as old as
Sound
it
wise,
is,
we were right in the center of everything.
Right. Yeah.
So there's been tons of bands I've seen that I probably wouldn't have if not for that.
Yeah. Yeah. They didn't seem like a touring band, really. They didn't seem like they got around much.
Who's that?
Noi, right?
I don't think they were.
I don't think so.
I don't think they. Yeah, I mean, when I think of German rock stuff, and Kraftwerk is probably the top of the pile in terms of being well known.
Yeah.
No, I don't think they did.
Would you mind turning that towards your face a little bit, just like kind of straighten it? Yeah, and that'll catch it better.
Yeah,
There you go. But yeah, actually, did you know? So the two main band members of Noi was Klaus Dinger and Michael Rother, and that's me singing. They're saying their names in English.
What's that?
I think that has a more of a Germanic pronunciation.
Right, but Rother is the way I said it. Yeah.
But so the two of them, and they were originally members of Kraftwerk.
I believe they were.
Yeah. I guess that's where they met, and they both left Kraftwerk together. After the first record.
Yeah.
And then went on to form this band.
Yeah, so, I think I got the impression that wing of the German rock community was pretty small.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah, I bet. Oh, because electronic music too. I mean, like Kraftwerk was pretty much the forefathers of that genre of music.
Pretty much.
And I mean, where else would you go if you happen to be in that band and enjoyed doing that style of music? I mean, where else can you go but create your own music that is kind of in a similar vein?
Right.
They weren't very well heralded, I don't think either, really.
I think it's only, they got a little bit of a bump in awareness with Stereolab. Because Stereolab is the only band I've ever heard that somehow adopted this vibe at times.
Now that you say that, I can clearly hear the similarity.
I mean, it was an influence I could tell, but they had so many influences that they pulled in, kind of breathy girl pop, like Jane Birkin or something like that. But Noi was, I'm pretty sure it was one of those influences. And I never felt like they mimicked them or imitated them, but they were the only group that I've heard that I can think of. There was a couple bands on the label that they were on for a while, Too Pure.
Yeah, okay.
That had a slightly similar vibe, but Stereolab was the only one that just like got that sort of like, human played but robotic vibe, just like, and also this music is interesting because it doesn't sound like a song doesn't really start or end. It begins, and then it goes for a while. And then it kind of fades out.
It's all transitional.
There's no announcement about, the various portions of the song.
Right.
It just sort of is a straight line that, like, they let you into and then they take you out of.
Yeah. It's very interesting music, and just the way that they did that, I wasn't even really thinking about that. But this might fit along into the realm of what you were saying earlier about how, like, the majority of the music you put on in, like, at home, like, while you're just kind of sitting around is what was the word you used? Landscape.
Background, ambient.
Music. Yeah, ambient. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Because there's not a lot of so I listened to this a lot at home on my own while I was doing my own things, primarily on earbuds, just to kind of get a grasp of the record, because this record is actually fairly new to me.
Yeah.
I got turned on to Noi, I think maybe like last year.
Yep.
Asked a good friend for a couple recommendations, and this came up. I was just like, okay, I'll take a listen. And yeah, it's just it never, I don't think it seeped in because I didn't sit with it long enough
really kind of grasp what was going on, because it's fairly background music. It's fairly.
It is. It's almost like intentionally faceless.
Yeah.
You know, there's not. It's almost like. And I got to admit, it was sort of my introduction in a formal way to that idea that music doesn't need like big, you know,
Intro.
heralded changes or intros that are sort of announcing the song or a huge ending. You know, like you could remove all of that stuff and you'd still have music.
Right.
And you know, a lot of people would say, yeah, it's boring music, but either that or you could say, well, it's music that isn't, it's not grabbing your brain. It's just sort of seeping in.
Exactly.
You know?
Seeping in, it's a good way to think about it, because like it's almost like a cancer in a way. It seeps into the body.
Disease.
You don't know it's there until it takes over.
Right.
You know, and then like only after like a good few listens do I find like that moments of the songs trigger inside my mind. It's just like, oh, this is that part. Okay, it's coming up. And I look forward to it almost.
I'm just in love with that idea. And obviously, in any kind of a formal rock band, that's almost like oil and water. You know, it's almost like, you know, it just doesn't mix, or one thing destroys the other.
Right.
I personally don't feel that has to be so. You know, I don't. I guess there's, you know, a million different places where I sort of got into this idea of like, you know, trying to mix these things. You know, one of them was techno and hip hop in especially in the 90s, but actually a great example is Public Enemy, the first couple Public Enemy records.
Yeah.
Which have so many sounds like crammed into this universe. But basically all you're really focusing on is the vocal and the beat.
Right.
And all that other stuff is sort of icing, decoration,
Right.
that sometimes interacts with the beat or the vocal and sometimes doesn't. So I think I was also affected by those things. In the 90s, I remember hearing, and I still got like a batch of techno and sort of electronica vinyl.
Yeah.
Maybe that big. It's not a million records, but
Yeah.
there were some that I remember hearing them that kind of blew me away because they did that thing.
Yeah.
These guys tend to be more serene.
Yeah. Easy listen,
sort of
kind of
zen.
like, yeah. Yeah. Because I can imagine that some of it can be a little grating, a little jarring almost.
What? Some of what?
Some of the other style of like electronica
Well,
or
right,
house or
exactly. Yes.
techno that you might listen to.
Sometimes that is less background and more foreground.
Yeah, yeah. Big beats, stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's really grabbing.
Yeah, it is.
This is just way more serene than that.
Yeah.
Nice flowing into and out of songs or.
Hey, some
Whatever you
people
wanna call
think of it as just far away from like New Age or something,
Yeah.
I could almost see that.
Yeah, I guess so.
I
don't have a lot of experience with New Age, but I can see how that.
Neither do I, but like there's so many records that I buy that are 50s and 60s kind of like loungy stuff, like that Cha-Cha record.
Is that your personal stash there? That's for yourself?
No, actually, that's what I'm selling, but that's like not a white guy cha-cha-cha record. That's a Cuban record from the 50s.
Oh, okay.
And like when you put that down low,
Yeah.
it has a similar kind of pleasant, flowy vibe. It's just a little bit more filled with angst and
Yeah.
joy and people shouting.
Yeah, yeah.
But if you keep it low, it has a similar effect.
Weird.
You know?
Okay.
Are you familiar with Fela Kuti?
Yeah.
Fela Kuti's also had a huge effect on me. I think, again, you know, the effect kind of took time.
Yeah.
Kind of like this did.
Right.
Like, I probably didn't listen to it, like put it on and play it loud and listen to it for a year or two.
Yeah.
I would put it on in the background because that's the way it felt correct. And then after a while listening to it, I was like, let's crank it this time. And
really sit down with it.
Yeah.
You have to do that on a couple of occasions at least with a record like this.
Yeah. But it's funny what you're mentioning about, like, dancing and drinking for hours from certain cultures, and then you got Fela Kuti songs, you know, when they're short, they're 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And you know, there's like incredible repetition.
Right.
But in those, and probably in your family, there's like sweat and joy and waving the arms around.
All night party for sure.
This is the German version.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's sort of devoid of craziness.
Yeah.
All it has left is the repetition.
Yeah.
You know, which is kind of amusing if you think about it, that all these cultures have this music that's sort of based on repetition, length, and almost forgetting that it's there.
Yeah.
Including this sort of chilly, cold version of it, you know?
Yeah. Oh, that's pretty
It's
interesting.
just a weird thing that I started to notice about. I started listening to more world music too, in general.
Yeah.
And world music in general tends to be interesting if it's made by darker skinned people.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is. Like, I tried listening to some Finnish records. They just didn't do it.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's all these different. But actually, there's probably Finnish music that actually is based on the same thing.
Oh yeah.
You know, just repetition and sort of groove of some kind.
Right. Well, it's kind of like the basis of all like kind of good music is that as soon as you find something that works, some kind of hook, you just keep that hook coming.
Yep.
And like the more it's repeated, the more somebody can kind of get into it. Whether it's more of a like a dancing thing, like more of a beat that you're following, or whether it's some kind of like, you know, hooky groove to kind of get your juices flowing, I guess.
Yeah, actually, I mean, disco is that. Disco is
pop music. It's all hooks, right?
Yeah.
It's all
and it's a beat. Yeah, it's just a constant beat. So, I think, especially when I wrote music, I was always frustrated because I wanted to tap into the stuff we're talking about now. Mm-hmm. But I'm too westernized.
Yeah.
So everything had to be chord change.
Yeah.
Second part, go back to the first.
Right. Go
back to the second. You know, guitar solo or some third part.
Right.
And I think for a while I enjoyed that. That's the nature of a lot of punk rock influenced stuff. Mm-hmm. And you know, when I grew up on, you know, all the usual suspects: Sabbath, Zeppelin, Bowie, Aerosmith.
Late 60s, early 70s, classic rock stuff, basically.
Yeah, it tended to be stuff that was very song-based.
Yeah.
Or in the traditional American way, song-based. And the group I had before Burma reformed was called the Peer Group.
Oh, okay.
Started off as the song-based stuff. And then there was a few people in the band that sort of liked this sort of repetitive, groovy concept. And as we went along, we started shifting more toward that. We actually had a couple of like 8-10 minute songs that hung on really repetitive bass lines and drum beats. And so I think of that as being sort of, you know, a formative version of Minibeast, I suppose.
Good
I
request.
didn't have it yet, but I was looking for it.
Yeah, yeah, that's cool. I actually haven't been able to find any of the peer group. I found a bunch of other things. I found Kustomized online. I found Volcano Suns, but that was the one that I didn't get to listen to anything. About.
I have stuff around. We probably recorded at least an album's worth of stuff.
Yeah. I guess it just wasn't online. I mean, I use Apple Music to stream, and that wasn't there.
Yeah, I don't. I can imagine that it wouldn't be. If I can dig it up, I'll let you have it. Yeah,
Okay.
I'll see if I can find some.
That'd be great, cool.
But it
'Cause I'd
was-
love
yeah.
to see what it is that you're kind of comparing them, because so of all the music of your discography, of your catalog that I have listened to, because I've listened to just about all of it now, Minibeast is my favorite, really.
It's my favorite. I mean, it would be because I'm doing it now.
Yeah.
But it is my favorite, and it's funny how things, you sort of grow out of what came before, and I think I wrote maybe 2 or 3 songs in Burma before we broke up.
Yeah.
And so I was coming out of that, and I sort of learned how to write music with those 2 guys. So the Volcano Suns was sort of, if you removed those 2 guys from Burma and threw me all over it, it was more like a sort of a slapstick version of Burma's sound.
Yeah.
But really did grow out of that.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, it seemed like a kind of like a easy transition.
it was
I mean, it was basically like you're swapping out band members, basically.
kind of,
Well, similar.
yeah, and I mean the 2 writers in Burma were really good. I thought they were great songwriters and really like good at sort of juggling melody and noise and stuff. And so yeah, I would admit when I was coming out of it, I was like, I like that format.
Yeah.
Because
it was a little different from your background. Because if you have the background of the classic rock stuff,
right,
it was,
right.
it was a
Actually,
new thing.
some of that sort of came up more in the Suns.
Yeah.
A little less, a little more shouty and sing-songy and sort of, those guys sort of were weaned on Soft Machine and Crimson and the Kinks and stuff like that. And like I said, I was more like a Sabbath, later suburban kid. But yeah, I kind of agree. I kept hoping to do something like that, and I think in the last few years of Burma being together, I was like, it was starting to burst out. I was like, before I drop, I got to do something that really relates to what I'm listening to. Because I was starting to feel like I wasn't doing that,
This is at the end of the reunion you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and I mean, even though Noi was sort of the crack that let the light in, there was so much stuff that I had listened to since that was always heading me in that direction of repetition and I mean, sometimes it was usually rhythm based, but I think the more important part of it was the repetition. I think I just like stuff that sort of gets into your brain through just
repetition.
hammering over and over.
There's a certain like quality of that like droniness when things are repeated over and over and just kind of.
And there actually are American rock bands and British rock bands that go to that place. I mean, the Velvets and the Stooges.
Oh yeah.
You know, and
Right.
in fact, the one rock band that has always been an intense influence on me, and actually is in Minibeast too, is the Stooges.
Yeah.
Like those 2-chord things. Like I think my understanding is before they made their first record, they would play 10-minute songs where they just repeated a couple of chords over and over.
Yeah.
And John Cale, when he recorded them, he said, let's organize this a
Right.
little
Let's
bit.
cut this down a bit. Cut out the
Yeah,
beat, right?
yeah, and he actually sort of found songs in those.
Oh yeah.
But it may be on their second record, that song "We Will Fall."
The Stooges?
Yeah, real quiet one.
No, because the second record is Funhouse. That one's
Maybe it's on
a
the first
motherfucker.
one.
Might
But
be the first one.
It's a long song. It's like 10 minutes long, and it's kind of Indian ambience in the background.
Right.
Iggy just kind of moaning, like
Yeah.
that. The drummer I play with just beats the shit out of the drums, but the mood of that is like completely connected to Minibeast.
Mm-hmm. I can see that. Yeah. I can see the connection of both of those, both Noi here and I know that Noi had an influence on Iggy. So
Yeah.
I'm assuming that had an influence on the Stooges. So yeah, that can totally make
Velvet's
sense.
had some songs like that too. I mean,
yeah.
Sister Ray and
Right.
yeah.
Right. I don't know the background of them too well as far as like what was influencing Lou Reed to write the way he did, but
Well, Cale came from an avant-garde. He's a violin player, and
Right.
and so he did stuff with early electronic people before the Velvets. And I think I just read this recently where he was trying to get Lou to, those pop songs are nice, but let's make some noise here.
Right,
So
yeah.
I think he was trying to drag him away from his sort of tighter little songs.
yeah.
There's always some dangerous influence around like that.
Dangerous or just good? Dangerous, I guess, yeah. Career killer, maybe? Something like that?
What's that?
Career killing
Yeah.
influence, maybe?
Yeah.
Something along those
Could be,
lines.
yeah.
But that's pretty insightful to think about it that way now. Yeah, I can definitely hear it. And I want to just bring a little bit of attention to your drummer, Keith. That's his name, Keith, right?
Keith,
He is amazing.
incredible.
I was floored when I saw you guys perform at, what is it called, Kodo the other night?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, he blows my mind.
Yeah, you really lucked out finding him. I mean, what was that like?
Well, the band with Rick Pelletier, Alec Redfern, and Alec's girlfriend Jillian played guitar. The only woman I've ever played with, and I hate that.
Oh,
The feminine influence in rock music, I think, is a really good thing.
yeah.
And it was interesting because, there's the three dudes, and then she's playing like kind of slide stuff and really like cat sounds and stuff. It was awesome. But anyway, that group broke up. Adam Autry.
I loosely know him, yeah.
Okay.
I know Dan better, but yeah.
Yeah. Dan's awesome. I love Dan.
He's an intense guy.
Yeah,
He's good.
he's awesome. Anyway, I think Eric Bailey's might have interviewed me for something, and I had made the second Minibeast record, and I was like, do I want to try this again in a group, And I was like, kind of, and I said to Eric, you don't know any musicians that would do music like this, would you? And he said, I would. And so we started playing a little bit. He seemed to get the idea of what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
And he knew Adam. Adam came down. Adam's an amazing drummer.
Yes, he is.
The musicians in Providence, the ones I've run into, are astonishing.
Yeah.
They're,
You've lucked
they're
out, I think.
incredible. and sadly, I had sort of, you can only have so many connections in a town, and I think I had sort of reached the end of my workable connections for musical associations in Boston. It felt like it had sort of reached its end anyway. So when we talked about moving down here, I was like, who knows? Maybe I'll find other people to play with. And so that's what we did first. Is try to do rock band versions of what were on those first two records.
Yeah.
Which wasn't that easy because they're so abstract. They're really. I'll give you those records too to check out if you didn't. I don't think you've heard those.
The first Minibeast ones?
Yeah, those two ism ones are the third and fourth.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll give you copies of those.
Okay. Cool.
The first one is very like a blueprint, sketchy kind of thing. But the second one, I think, actually sort of gets some of the mood of what we do now.
Yeah. Well, I think it's hard to grasp it onto record, right? So what you do, because it's kind of, your music is kind of an improvisational basis. Right?
Exactly. And so improvisational bands are difficult because if you can only catch one version of the improv.
Right.
It's like either this is going to be the version or you can put 8 versions on one record, I suppose.
Right.
I think Adam moved away.
Okay.
At least for a few months, and we were sort of starting to play regularly, and I was like, we got to at least see if we can find somebody else. And I was 99% sure that I would never find anyone else that wanted to play it or wanted to play it like I did. And let me see, I think I sort of put out the word to different musicians, and one guy said, I'm playing, but I know a guy that would fit what you're talking about. And I sent him an email, and he said the general layout is like, Stooges, Can, Fela Kuti, and he emailed back. He said, "Oh, please let me try out." He was like, "I've been," he was like begging me, and I was like,
"Yeah,
really? You want to do this? Okay."
Yeah.
And so he came down, and it was like this guy fell out of the sky. I mean, he. I suppose he is pulled back slightly to play in Minibeast because he's very technically proficient, as you can probably tell.
Yeah.
And had I suppose prog rock kind of leanings.
Oh. Okay.
Which he can indulge with us.
Yeah.
But I think he kind of figured out how to simplify and bolt things down hard too. When he started playing with us. So yeah, within a really short time, I was like, man, this guy's just incredible.
Yeah.
And completely on the same page as us. So how that happened, he lives in Attleboro. He lives like a few towns away.
Yeah.
Wasn't doing anything. At least is old enough to feel comfortable playing with me. He's I think he's 50 now.
50?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it's funny, like, what 50-year-old guy in Attleboro wants to play this kind of music?
That's a really like a diamond in the rough, just kind of
isn't it a
randomness.
It's a bizarre story,
It sure is, yeah.
It's very strange that
because I've never even heard of him before. Like, so he's been around for 50 years, or he's been playing.
He played in Providence in a band in the 90s called Haystack Cahoon or something like that.
Oh, okay. I know that name. Yeah.
Kind of an indie rock band.
Yeah. I don't think I saw them. I don't think I played with them, but I know the name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think they played fairly often.
I would say
But my impression was, he and his wife, he's an illustrator, and he and his wife had a kid, so he was sort of,
dying down.
Yeah, in with family life.
Yeah, it happens.
But I mean, this just fit. Well, you know, I'm not that far away. We actually practiced downstairs.
Cool.
So yeah, it was kind of insane, and it's a real solid connection that we have. You know, I think Eric. You know, I don't know for sure, but I think Eric just after a while wanted to play something different.
Yeah.
When he split, we actually, Keith and I went through the same thing. In fact, Keith was worse. He was like, "We'll never find anybody," and I was like, "I found you," you know.
Yeah.
So you never know. And Niels was playing with a friend of mine, and it was kind of a part-time band, so they, you know, his time was somewhat free. But he lived up in Boston. He filled in on some shows we already had booked, and at the end of those 3 shows, Keith and I said, we got to ask him. I mean, no one wants to drive from Boston to here for practice, but
Right.
he said yes. So I got lucky twice. You know, I think we're all dealing with something amazing when you find an original band that works really well when you're post 50. Doesn't happen too much.
He's post 50 as well?
He's around, yeah, I think he's a little
Okay.
beyond, yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine how that might seem like a kind of a just a gold mine moment.
Like unattainable
Yeah.
grail. How do you,
Right.
you know, it's something that in general, especially in Boston, like I said, it sort of reached the end of my associations there. And I was trying to picture like, who do you run into who's somewhat near my age that actually wants to play what we're playing?
Right.
And I did.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, lucky you.
lucky me. That's all I can say.
You've been fairly lucky your whole career, I think.
I have, you know, I would have to agree with that.
Yeah. Well, so let me just for anyone that's listening that doesn't know that we're talking about Minibeast.
Yeah.
That's your newest band.
Yep.
Because obviously you've been in a slew of bands over the past 30
Slew and a
years,
half.
40 years almost. How long has it been? 40 years.
I've been,
Almost 40, because 79, I'm actually turning 40 this year, so yeah.
yeah.
I've been playing for about 40 years.
Yep.
Shit. Pretty cool. So, and of all those bands, Mission of Burma obviously being a huge, influential, and legendary punk rock band. I don't know how much you like hearing that, but...
In one way or the other, I suppose, yeah.
Well, I mean, so I think it's very strange, because... I don't know, people are going to get mad at me for saying this, but I've never really been a huge fan of Mission of Burma.
I'm not mad at you.
Okay.
I understand it.
Yeah.
Because there's some weird things about it. One thing, most of the bands that sort of blow me away in a really like a really distinct way tend to have, if not one writer, one sound, one overall overarching sound.
Right.
I mean, they're both the main writers. They have slightly different styles, but they kind of mesh. And I guess you could say there's not a strong central personality to Mission of Burma music.
Yeah.
Well, I'm curious, what's your problem with it, or where it leaves you a little?
It just never really grabbed me, you know. I mean, and I think that a lot of that has to do with the lack of ever having been able to see a performance, because I feel like I've been doing that a lot lately. I feel like I've missed out on a lot of bands, and so now with like the streaming music being so accessible,
Yeah.
I've been going into the catalog, being with my mind, saying like, what did I need to listen to? What did I need to listen to? And I was just like, I've totally missed the Cramps. I gotta listen to the Cramps. So I put on their first record, thinking like, this is where you gotta start. And I'm just like, this sucks. Like, this is not a great
Incredible live band.
band. And I know, and I'm like, I'm listening to it the whole time, thinking like, I wish I could have seen this band, because then I know I would have developed a relationship with this band and know how wild they were and know that I loved being there and seeing that it would make me want to listen to the record more.
Yeah, that's an issue. I do think back in the day, we were thought of, especially when we began, as incredibly noisy.
Yeah.
Which is kind of funny because those records are somewhat textured and smooth. I mean, they aren't really, especially by modern standards, they aren't especially noisy.
No.
But live, yeah, there were some people that just hated it so much because they viewed it as just complete noise.
Right.
Like literally like metal machine music noise, you know, and that may say how straight a lot of the punk rock and rock music was in general at the time.
Yeah.
Like a band like Devo, who's actually pretty crazy and noisy, were actually clean, and you could hear all the parts.
Concise.
Yeah, concise. Yeah,
Yeah.
Very stripped down in a way. The guy that ran the label we were on, he had put out a couple of garage rock 45s, and he came to see us, and he was really intrigued by us, and we couldn't figure out why. We thought we liked the records he put out. I think at the time maybe, it was like poppy punk stuff, Neighborhoods and this band, The Inflictors. I think he put out The Liars around the time that we did their garage rock band.
Yeah.
Good stuff, but nowhere near like us. And to make a 45, now this is in the days when people, recorded on 2-track with everything in the red, and you put out a quick, 100 singles, and
Right.
and you blasted it on a system so it sounded even more like shit. And he had us do 20 takes of each song, and kept them and he'd go. He sort of grew up on the Yardbirds and the Kinks and Beatles and sort of British Invasion, really looked at that stuff as sort of a template for how you made great rock music.
Yeah.
So he viewed us somehow, don't ask me how, through that lens.
Yeah.
Of a band that could conceivably make a single that was catchy.
Right.
And initially we were sort of turned off by that, but then when we figured, what's the harm in making a single? And by the time the single was done, it was very, in a way it didn't sound anything like us. It was us, but it was a super refined version of us.
Yeah.
Academy Fight Song and Max Ernst were the songs.
Right.
By that point, we really liked him. He liked us a lot personally. And so then we made an EP with him. And same thing, it was also, it was some pretty gnarly sounds we had, but he managed to make it sound somewhat textured and pleasant. And he did, we got a lot of local and national radio play with these records that I can't imagine we would have gotten otherwise.
Yeah.
So it was a strange way that stuff happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, because early on we were not just noisy in a punk rock sense, but pretty dissonant. And then we added the guy that did sound and tape loops. So then there's another bunch of sounds coming in, added to this noise that's already there. We were always a pretty different band than we were on those records.
Right.
But I do agree that I think without Rick Hart, who knows, maybe people would know who Mission of Burma was. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Huh.
But the other thing I found after I got out of Burma and I got into the Volcano Suns was like a lot of bands I love, kind of funny, like absurdist, just ridiculous. Like I think the idea of playing rock music to anyone in the Volcano Suns was such a silly idea that we always just treated it like sort of a gag, like sort of a noisy joke or something. Yeah. And Burma was almost utterly devoid of humor.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I guess because everyone kind of had a part in writing and even in singing songs.
Which was great for the drummer guy who didn't know how to write. You know, it was terrific for me because it sort of invited me into that process.
Yeah.
I liked that we had that outside sound that was there. The tape loops were there sometimes not. They were always a little different. We tended to play the songs a little bit different from time to time, and that stayed with me. I mean, that's been pushed way up front in Minibeast, where there are songs that are 4 minutes one night and 8 minutes the next night.
Yeah.
You know,
depends how you feel.
Yeah, and so I guess ultimately the things that I've liked about these bands along the way, I try to keep. The things I didn't care for, push to the curb.
Right. Makes sense.
I had gone to see the Moving Parts a few other times, and I was like, the bass player and guitar player are fucking awesome. And I actually tracked down Clint. I found out he worked at a bar in Cambridge, and I said, like, what are you guys doing now? Because I know you're not in that band anymore. And he said, well, we're thinking about, me and Roger are thinking about something that's a little more guitar heavy, a little less sort of Tinker Toy Devo.
Yeah.
And they tried me out 3 times. They clearly weren't sure about it at first, this kid from the suburbs, you know. And eventually they were like, yeah, cool. And so that's how that hookup happened.
Oh, wow. So we were here featuring Noi. I'm going to keep on trying to say it wrong. Noi. And this is what you have here is a reissue of some sort. You don't know exactly what reissue it is. You don't remember you remember when you got it.
Yeah, I got it in the 90s. My the blue and orange copy I was talking about, that I'm pretty sure was a Brain original.
Yeah.
One of my ex-girlfriends confiscated that. I think she still has it.
Damn it. Could I see your jacket actually for a second? Thank you. And so you found this in Maine. This copy?
No.
No, this was the other one that you were talking about.
The blue and
girlfriend
orange
confiscated. One, yeah. How dare she? But this is a reissue, so you don't know what reissue this is?
I don't.
Okay.
There have been quite a few different ones, I think. You can still find a reissue copy easy online, too.
Yeah, these days, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But it's kind of a... But this is a fairly rare record, I feel. I mean, like... I don't know what to think about this band exactly, because... So they weren't really, like, popular. When did they become popular? I mean... They definitely have a significance now, more so than they ever did.
Agreed. Agreed. Lots of things are like that, you know?
Yeah.
See, to me, it's the kind of thing I would have stumbled into at some point.
Yeah.
On purpose. But I like that I happened to stumble into it accidentally. I mean, that was, like I said, that was one of the earlier records that sort of opened up the idea about what you could do in a rock band.
Yeah. Try to be real careful with it, sorry.
I think I put on A first.
Yeah, no, I think that was right.
Yeah.
So, what got you into vinyl? Because you, from what I realized or learned about you, is that you became a seller at some point? Like you were actually working in a record store?
Yeah. That was that was a really great education.
I bet.
Let's see, I think it was around the time the Volcano Suns broke up. Excuse me, a friend of mine worked at a place in Boston called Mystery Train.
Mhm.
And I think I always kind of wanted to work in a record store because is there a more cliche job for a musician?
No.
I think not.
It's almost a rite of passage.
It is. It's like, it's a given. You have to fall ass backwards into a record store at some point.
Yeah. I only just started now.
Yeah.
And I'm almost 40 now, so. It took me a while. Oh, there that goes, sorry.
And yeah, actually, what did I do before that? I worked in a video store. You know, it's like all of a
The
piece.
next best job.
Yeah. And when I started working there, I think there was constant bonding daily on one band or the other. And we were all, every time a record came in, I think we were all like, you know, like people that were in the desert looking for water. You know, you'd see anything you had not seen before and you just wanted to know.
Yeah.
And it happened to the other people there too, but I think that got me in this mindset of being really curious about stuff I didn't already know.
Yeah.
Which tends to be sort of the opposite of the way most people are about music, and maybe even about movies or art or anything else. They get, like, I know this, so I love this.
Right.
And this was about finding a new love every day, you know, like a new thing to obsess over. So, you know, two things that became somewhat hipstery were lounge stuff and soundtracks. And I've always loved movies, so the soundtrack thing was sort of an easy thing for me to glom onto.
Yeah.
These records right here are all soundtracks. And,
Really? Wow.
And actually, I've been there's a great label that's putting out lots of old like Italian slasher movie soundtracks and stuff like that called Mondo.
Oh, yeah.
New stuff, and they're like beautiful packaging and remastered. They sound great, and both those forms of music were so different from psych and rock and punk, in that rock and punk and psych all have like relatively sort of hard edges and beginnings and endings, and you know, like I was talking about before, that you know, sort of rock music with defined structures, you
Right.
know. Soundtracks, especially the records themselves, when they're detached from the images,
Right.
are like listening to clouds or something. In general, they're so formless
Yeah.
because they're there to support images.
Right.
A lot of lounge sometimes were as adventurous as any rock record. I mean, like, just bizarre sonic stuff. So between the soundtracks and that stuff, my sort of old ideas about, and this is also when techno and sort of more abstract hip hop was coming in too. So all these things kind of coagulated together to me.
Yeah.
And sort of impressed me with this idea that like rock music is only part of the story. There's this whole like big batch of sound that is on vinyl records that doesn't have any of these rules. There's no lead solo, there's no, you know, there's no lyric that you have to hang on to.
Right.
There may be nothing for you to hang on to, but it's still a pleasant experience to listen to it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think record store experience was super formative in that sense. So when I let all that other stuff in, I think that's when, Minibeast started to birth in my head.
Yeah.
Wow, it'd be cool to have a rock band that actually incorporated some of those things.
Yeah.
It's tough, isn't it? Like when you find them and you're like, oh, I could really, like this would be nice in my collection, and then
Well, you know what? I don't, even though it looks like I do, I don't romanticize records.
okay,
I don't care for that. I don't really like it.
Yeah.
There are people that are so fetishistic about it. Like
Right.
I have this copy that's pristine, and I'm just not. To me, it's a tool. It's a. I love to listen to them.
So one other thing that I was thinking about that, not to go back to the Burma thing, but there was one thing in particular that stuck out in my mind that I would really like to ask you, which was, so that band was actually so influential, really. How do you feel about it, like the music that Burma had made, making such an influence and an impact upon like a new generation that has influenced another generation? It's like,
Oh, it's a few on now.
yeah, oh yeah,
I think I had more awareness of that when we reformed.
right,
There's always sort of like I mean, it's funny, like reunions usually last like a tour.
yeah,
We were together for 13 years. And we were together like 3 years the first
Right.
time around.
yeah,
So, um, you know, bands would tell us, they're like, "Oh man, you're a huge influence on us," and you'd listen to the music and go, how'd that happen?"
Right.
How do we fit in there? I don't
Yeah.
really see that. But that's fine too. There's plenty of music that influences me that you wouldn't hear in my music, so
Right.
that's not necessary. Uh, you know, I'm glad it has some impact to people. Beyond that, I don't know what to think about it.
Yeah.
You know, but it's kind of like when something is rediscovered. You know, I kind of always want to say the way you reacted to it is no shock to me, and I don't take my connection to it is it's personal, but it's not like oh you put down something I was part of. I don't even relate to it that way anymore, and I didn't when we were playing again. It was more just like, oh, this is a band I'm in at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it gets hard to know how other people feel about it.
Right. Right. But what does it feel like to you just to have these people come up to you and tell you that you were inspiration to them?
Beyond it being flattering,
Yeah.
it's nice. It's nice to know that somebody gives a shit. You know.
Yeah. Regardless, I guess, yeah. I guess regardless of the span or the scope of your music, the impact of it, as if anyone comes up to you and says, "Hey, I love what you do," it feels good.
But in all honesty, I'd much rather have them say that about what I do at the present.
Yeah.
So
Right.
yeah, every band I've been in, I feel an emotional connection to, but that's the past, and you
Right.
know,
So
you want to hope that. I think again, I'm just happy that I'm playing in a band that like actually gives me a lot of creative juice.
hmm.
Most people my age are lucky to be playing, like some covers down at, the local bar, and
Yeah.
I'm actually playing exactly the music I want to play in a way more than I did before.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's all gravy, you know.
All right. Well, I'd just like to say thank you for doing this first and foremost. I love the new band, and I'm not saying that just to stroke your ego. It
Sounds
really was
good.
great. It's really great. I mean, I saw you guys play live, and I've been telling everyone since. It's just like you got to go see them.
Oh, I
when you have
appreciate
an
that,
opportunity, because I was just like, it was one of those experiences that. For me, I'm a very subdued person, if you couldn't tell. I don't move much. I don't talk much, really. And that show was like getting me into it.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it was just like there was like I could tell from everyone else around me that there was this just inescapable groove happening.
Cool.
Like everyone was kind of like getting into it. So yeah, it was good. Congratulations on the new band. I love it.
Thanks
Thank you
much.
for the records.
You know, it's funny. It's funny. With the previous two guys in the rhythm section, it was good, but I feel like it's sort of, we've got it now.
I think so.
I don't know how long it'll last. You know, you never know. Any group can break up tomorrow, but I do feel like the pieces are correct now.
Yeah, I would say so. I agree. Peter, thank you.